a concert setting, regardless of what the source material is completely different than just directing a traditional musical.
The Saginaw Choral Society originated in 1930 and consists of volunteer singers from all walks of life representing the Great Lakes Bay region. Through the group's history, they engaged in collaborations with others that include the Boys Choir of Harlem, Dave Brubeck, and Judy Collins. The choir will perform the music of Andrew Lloyd Webber's Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dream Coat at the Temple Theater in cooperation with the Saginaw Youth Choir this week. We have 3 guests involved in the production on the podcast today. Adam Prime will sing the part of Joseph, Saginaw Choral Society board member and accompanist Kevin Cole, and Ric Roberts, who is directing the show. More information about the performance here at the Temple Theater is available in the show notes and on the theater's website. Listen in and learn more about this incredible production. Well, today, thank you all for being here on the Temple Arts Podcast. It's a real pleasure to have 3 guests on the podcast today. We have Adam Prime, Ric Roberts, and Kevin Cole, who will all be involved in the production of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dream Coat. So let's get started. If you could each sort of describe your role in the production and a little bit about yourselves, we'll take it from there.
All right. Well, my name is Ric Roberts, and I'm the production manager for the Saginaw Choral Society, but I also direct their musicals when they do them in concert. I'm also a member of the tenor section, and this production is one of our continued musical theater in concert series. We've done The Wizard of Oz, Music Man. A couple years ago before the pandemic, we did the musical Scrooge. And this one was chosen primarily because there's no dialogue. There's maybe 4 or 5 words that are spoken. And even those words that are spoken in time with the music for the most part. And also it allows us to work with the new Saginaw Youth Choir, which is run by Emerald Joyner, who's also a member of the Saginaw Choral Society. And to combine these 2 choirs together is what our primary goal was in the selection of this piece.
And Adam, you are playing Joseph of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dream Coat. Can you describe a little bit about your view on that role?
It's actually a small anniversary for me in playing this role. This was the first show I had ever done in high school when I was 17. I auditioned to play Joseph and was Joseph. And so 20 years later, I'm playing Joseph again. And the thing I love about it is how much time we cover in an hour and a half. It's not a long show, but a lot happens. And so I don't have the full background that I could give you with Ric because I'm very new to the Choral Society. This is my first show joining them, and it's been a blast.
Awesome. And Kevin, can you introduce yourself and a little bit of your role in this production?
Well, Kevin Cole here, and I've been away from the area for 22 years, living in Chicago and having a life as a concert pianist and an occasional music director. But it still allowed me to come up to Bay City, my hometown, and get involved in a lot of benefit concerts and programs over the years. I've been back in the area living full time. It'll be 6 years now in June. And in getting back in the area, of course, you get back in touch with your arts and theater people. And Ric Roberts and I have known each other, oh my word, 30 years plus from doing productions. But I also have a long-standing relationship with the Saginaw Choral Society going back several decades. Well, when I started to get involved more hands-on by being back in town, they had me as soloist with some of their programming during the Choral Society season. And during the pandemic, that didn't stop us. We did some virtual things that I was involved in. So when the time came for the musical this year, for the in-concert musical, I just offered my services as an accompanist and coach if they needed me to work with anybody, because Jeremiah and Ric set the bar very high as far as the quality of the productions. And we do not treat artists or amateur theater people or whatever you want to call yourself any differently than we would if we were working with professionals, which all of us have. So that's always a good thing when you're offering your services as an accompanist, because I don't have to worry that Ric isn't going to do his job as director. I'm in great hands. So this is kind of fun for me because I just get to play, and I get to play with the orchestra. We'll have a 15-piece orchestra on stage. And I'm also now on the board of directors of Saginaw Choral Society. So I like that I'm a very hands-on person on the board, as this board is. It's quite a working board. It's just not a name only. And I suspect, because Ric and Jeremiah are always conjuring up new things, I'll be doing some more things in the future with them.
I would say that's true for both Kevin and Adam. The talent that these two men have is something that actually excites me, and I'm constantly looking for new projects for not just with the Choral Society, but outside of the Choral Society. So it's a great resource also to work with an organization that's been around for 87 years, because the talent base is terrific.
Talking a little bit about that talent, Adam, you described this as being a little bit of a marker in time for you, having played Joseph in high school and now playing that role again. Tell me a little bit about the development that you've had in between time and the way that you're approaching the role now versus in high school, and some of the development that has happened in that time.
Sure. I know I'm going to tread very lightly here because Kevin and Ric are joining us. So it's hard for me to say that the reason in high school and how I'm approaching it differently is I did not like musicals in high school. They didn't make any sense. It made no sense to come home and your wife asks you, how was your day? And you have a 5-minute song prepared. It didn't make sense. So I did not want to really be in the musical world. I wanted to only be a trumpet player. That's what I did right up through high school. I still do a little bit now. I just wanted to play jazz on my trumpet, and my friends were going out for Joseph and said, hey, we're going to be gone for 3 months. You should just join the musical to hang out with us. And I said, sure. So my junior year of high school, I apparently, trumpet players have this reputation of being arrogant, which is just not true. We're cocky, if anything. And I said, fine, but I'm auditioning for the Donny Osmond part. And I ended up singing in front of the entire school my audition piece, which was Close Every Door. And it got really quiet in the auditorium. And it was the first time that I thought this was the biggest mistake of my life. But I didn't realize that the silence was the start of a singing career for me. And I realized that traveling with nothing on your shoulder, carrying a trumpet around, is a lot easier than actually, like I meant to say, than carrying a trumpet around all the time and making sure your embouchure's in shape and all of that good stuff. So it vaulted a quick learning curve to where then I was introduced to Kevin Cole. It's got to be, and Kevin, you can jump in if you correct me, but it's got to be 17 years ago now that I was introduced to Kevin.
And yeah, I would say it's about that. I did not know Adam Prime when I was living in Chicago all those years, and he was having this introduction into transitioning to voice from trumpet. But I knew who his mom was because she went to school with my brother Tom at All Saints High School in Bay City. And I certainly knew the Prime names. Some of his relatives had been in high school musicals that I had played for. But so when it was suggested, that he's in Chicago, I said, well, I want to meet him. I want to meet this Wunderkind, that I'm all hearing about. And so we did meet. And of course, we had a lot of people in common. And then I said, well, what are you doing? And he said, well, taking some classes and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, I have a couple of programs coming up where I'm going to use a vocalist or two. So I did. And he performed in the winter at Millennium Park. And it's on the new stage, which is kind of cool because they have this totally glass It's like the world's biggest garage door, and it closes, and you have the city behind it in the wintertime, and they can seat about 300 people there. And Adam was in a program I did there in Chicago. And then I said, if you're looking for a good voice teacher just to plug in and get, brush up some stuff, I know one of the best at Sherwood Academy, and he did that for a bit. And then we've just kept in touch. And he, of course, is famous in our area for his annual Christmas show at the State Theater, as well as singing for, I'm sure, countless weddings and funerals, and just like I do the same. So anyway, we plug in when we can, when I'm not out and about doing concert works with orchestras and stuff. But when it came time for Joseph, and what's so cool about Saginaw Choral Society is that they are open to everyone when they do these well, they're open to everyone anyway. We are encouraging members, to new people to join, but especially when they do the in-concert musical, they open it up to the public to audition. And I just said to Jeremiah and to Rick, I said, well, do you know Adam Prime? And they go, no, we don't. And I said, well, is it okay if I'm going to put a bug in his ear and see if he'll come and audition? Because I think he's a good candidate for Joseph. Mm-hmm. And I was not there, unfortunately. I was out doing a concert when he auditioned for them. And Rick texted me. He goes, we found our Joseph. He said, first of all, he looked great. Now I was thinking, okay, if he opens his mouth and he can sing, he's our Joseph.
There is a God, yeah.
Yeah. And Rick said, not only can he sing, but my God, can he sing?
Yeah.
So it's terrific because, well, and then you can tell him with the youth choir being involved, what happened, Adam, with your children.
I fell in love with the voice, having, like Kevin mentioned, periodically working with Kevin and other voice teachers, and just I so now appreciate musicals. I have to get that in there because I didn't finish that statement of how I didn't like them, and all of a sudden I'm doing Joseph again, and I'm in love with the theater. I love it now. But with the youth choir, what was interesting is, I'm gonna take one of Rick's talking points on accident here, is this show is normally done in the idea that it's a children's story, and most productions use a children's choir. And the neat thing is, I have 4 children, all under 10, but I had twins to double up quickly. So I have a 10-year-old, a 7-year-old who's going to be 8 very soon, and then 4-year-old twins that will be 5 very soon. So the 10 and 7-year-old are joining me on stage. They're part of the youth choir now, and we have just had a very, very fun time at home, singing through the rehearsal score. And I told them that I'm going to look at Daddy, I'll give you little winks up there, and share the stage with them. And it's they're having so much fun. And Emerald Joyner, who runs it, who's one of the narrators, is doing just an absolutely fantastic job with teaching them not just how to sing, but about music and the arts. And so she's doing a fantastic job. And so it's kind of just a Prime family reunion up there.
Yeah. And Thor, it's interesting to continue on to use that as a springboard. That is one of the things also we wanted to make sure for this production. Oftentimes, arts organizations, and not all, I mean, some do a beautiful job at this, but a lot of arts organizations don't think about the future. The Saginaw Youth Choir is the future of the Saginaw Choral Society. Not only are they learning music and possibly be members of our parent organization someday, but also we have to teach younger people that it's okay to go to theater. It's okay to see the symphony. Until we start creating more audiences, some arts organizations, they kind of slide on, well, we have these people are coming to see the show. Well, have you done a show that talks about the Black experience? Have you done a show that talks about the youth experience? There's all kinds of things that we're so focused, because we have to be, because we never have 2 nickels to rub together, obviously. But they're so focused on trying to make sure that this core audience is able to come see it, that we forget about growing and expanding the future of our organizations. And a choral society, 87 years old, we have to do that. And that's exactly what the choir and the youth choir and Joseph is doing. I can't wait to see in the audience grandparents, parents, and children all watching the same show, not worrying about any kind of adult problems or anything in this show. I mean, it's a biblical show, so obviously the Bible does have some things in it that are, you would think, aren't for kids, but this is all done in such a way that it's multi-generational viewing, and we love that.
Ric, I want to come back to something you mentioned at the beginning, how this particular production is almost exclusively done through song rather than the dialogue. Has that changed the way that you approach the performance? And tell me a little bit more about the process of what changes you might have had to make in the way that you work, given that the nature of the production.
Well, a concert setting, regardless of what the source material is completely different than just directing a traditional musical. But with this, the hard part is, and also the good thing about it, I mean, it's a double-edged sword, because the hard part is there is no dialogue. So the traditional through line that a script would have, or character arc that you would have, is kind of thrown out the window, because a song in Act 1 and a song in Act 2 may be 5 years apart, and there's no exposition in the dialogue that shows that. So we have to show through technical work, drops, costuming, and things like that to help the audience understand that we have moved along in time. The other thing is with the Choral Society, when I was at SVSU before I retired, I directed most of the musicals, and I always had a great core group of very talented students that I would select shows and say, okay, our group can do this show. It's a little bit outside, but we can grow them into this, which was what we were supposed to do as educators. With the Choral Society, 95% of the people in that choir aren't actors, they're singers. And we're very lucky that, I'm telling you, these adults, they are so open to trying things. And putting their trust in the design team and the artistic team, that it is almost becoming one of my favorite things to do is these concerts, because it's all new to them. Even learning how to write down blocking is new to some of them. So that is one of the great things about it. And so I have to direct from that standpoint. I'm not directing from a standpoint where I have 25 college students who know, when if I say cross down right, they know exactly what that means. It's easy peasy, we move on. With this, you have to make sure that you're shooting for that mid-range. So you're bringing the people who may not have the experience along with you, and you're keeping it relevant and at least exciting enough for the people who do have that experience that it doesn't get boring for them. So it's a really fine line in there to keep that going. But the show is a lot like Les Mis. You know, Les Mis, there's very little dialogue, and this is much like that. Our concept, Jeremiah and my concept of this production, is that it's like, this was one of the top record albums in the 70s. Everybody kind of assumed it was a sequel to Jesus, not a sequel, a follow-up to Jesus Christ Superstar, which technically it kind of was, but the album was on the charts for 3 years. So we're trying to look at it from the experience of, this is an album. So the show never, ever stops. There'll be applause between numbers, but literally the high arc of that applause, once it starts to dissipate, we're moving on to the next number. Our goal is to keep everybody interested and not worrying about their cell phones for an hour and 29 minutes.
That in itself would be a real feat these days, huh?
Yes, it would.
You know, in doing a production like this, as with any artistic endeavor, usually there's a large lesson learned or an experience that you carry on to the next project. And I'd love to hear each of you maybe comment a little bit about what you see as that lesson being learned right now that you hope to hold on to as you continue your creative pursuits. Maybe we'll start with you, Kevin.
Okay. Well, there's twofold. One is Joseph, personally, the musical, is my favorite Andrew Lloyd Webber musical. And a lot of people find that strange because he's done Jesus Christ Superstar and Evita and Phantom, and the list goes on and on. But I so appreciate his talent for being able to write in all these different styles. And being a songwriter, composer myself, I really related to him better in this show than any of his other bigger, more, firework style musicals. So for personally, I'm enjoying plugging back into that. And as a side note, during the pandemic, when it was at its height, Andrew Lloyd Webber was doing these video podcasts from his piano. And I was never a big fan of the person because, you'd see him and, he's making more money than you could have, than Beethoven. And you just kind of go, well, he's probably kind of smug and into himself. But I had a new appreciation for him because he's hilarious, first of all, very kind. And it just seems like a regular person. And I was like, oh, I'm so glad. So now coming back and doing Joseph, I'm like happy for me and happy for him. That's personal. On another level, bigger level, is because Ric and Jeremiah are so inclusive, and I mean for the talent and people in the area, Great Lakes Bay region, I think that is going to help Saginaw Choral Society a lot, because Ric and I have worked with so many people from so many walks of life just because we've made the rounds in Midland, Bay City, and Saginaw over 30 plus years. But so many times the only chance you get to work with these people are in their community and their comfort zone. Now, because of Ric and a little bit because of me, we're bringing into the fold in Saginaw some of the other areas, and we need more of that mix. So I think this show is helping provide a bridge in many ways to the talent pools in our communities.
Adam, from your perspective, what do you feel like, or what lesson do you feel like you're learning through this process, now having started to enjoy musicals again, and reinstate some of that love there? What are you learning through the process of this production? So
I am, for the last 15 years, I've been a worship leader, and I realized that music it hits deep. I've heard so many stories of people that are on their last couple of days on this earth, and they're not as with it as you would, but they'll be able to move their mouth to songs or hymns or something from the radio on the 50s. What I'm learning through all of this is that music isn't streamlined in one genre. It connects so many people. And as Kevin was saying, with Ric and Jeremiah, and Kevin, they're so inviting to the Saginaw Choral Society that the people, my church has been running a slide that says, come see our own Adam Prime and Joseph, that people knew of the Saginaw Choral Society and knew about what they do, and that they're it's a prestigious thing to be a part of, and they've made the connection that, oh, he does more than just sing on Sundays. And so it's Great this point. Open arms of this connection of community. And so what I'm learning through it is to just honestly literally keep eyes and ears and everything open, because in the grand scheme of things, it's quite a chain that lingers and connects everybody through music. I am learning that I really do like the theater. And a lot of that is because I feel I have known Ric for, would you say 7 weeks, Ric?
Yeah, maybe.
And I told him at rehearsal or at some point that I feel like I have known him and Jeremiah for years, exactly. Because of how inviting and kind and just, and on the flip side of that, because I can see working with them in the future, or I hope to, it feels like we have had this friendship from the past that's going to continue forward. So I'm learning to always make the connections and as uncomfortable at times, get out of my lane and see what it's like in other ones. That's
and
it.
How about yourself, Ric?
Well, to be honest, what you heard from Kevin and Adam is very similar. I think that, a matter of fact, I told Adam just a couple days ago, he said, I just want to let you know, I appreciate you letting me be part of this. And I said, oh, friend, we're going to be working together for a long time. and I mean that, because I look around the room and I see people who I performed with 35 years ago. We have people from 6 different counties in this show. We have people from the age of that are in 2nd grade all the way to people who are 80 years old. What that to me is possibly the most exciting thing, is to be able to share that with all these generations, and to look across at the piano and see Kevin playing, who is one of my dearest friends, and to look and see my niece in the youth choir, and to look at my husband conducting. I think, how lucky can I possibly be to have this and to get paid for it? Now, I'd like to get paid more for it.
Hear, hear.
But it is really that. I mean, it's so oftentimes we look outside and think, oh, I wish I had this and this. And I get to rehearsal, and there are some days where I am so overwhelmed with trying to put this entire thing together, because Thor, we only rehearse 1 day a week, and for 2 hours and 45 minutes. And that is one of the biggest things I have to overcome, is how do I get this entire production on stage in 9 rehearsals? But then I see Adam and I tell him something, and I look at him and I think, okay, he trusts what I'm telling him. I look into the chorus and talk to Larry Jacobs from Bay City. Larry, I need you to do this. I got it. I look at Gus, who works at Dow. Gus, can you do this? I got it. So that kind of response, and this, I don't want to say, it is kind of a family feeling that, yes, at times we're not going to always agree with each other, but we all know what the end goal is. And the end goal is Saturday, April 30th at 3:00, when that curtain goes up at the Temple Theater, that we are going to try to provide them the finest production we can in concert of Joseph, with a live audience, or excuse me, a live orchestra, drops from New York, lighting equipment from all over the country, props, costumes, the whole thing, and to try to make it work. And the hard part is, it's a one-off. We get to do it exactly once, which is a blessing in many ways, but it's also kind of sad, because there are going to be people that walk out of that theater on the 30th and call their friends and say, you're not going to believe what we just saw.
And I hope it's a live audience. I really do. Rick.
Oh, I do too.
Very live.
Yeah.
We want a very live audience.
Well, that's the thing. I've performed on the Temple Theater many times, especially with Saginaw Choral Society. But to have 100+ people on that stage, with over 40 of them being children, that's the big thing. And because as Rick said earlier, there are very few shows that bring together this combination of generations for an audience and for the performers.
I hope that people honestly do join, seeing the gap in generations, and with word of mouth about how much fun and inviting it is. I never got the new guy treatment. As Rick said, it is like a family. There's no egos there, because we have the same end goal. We're trying to just deliver a fantastic product. And so I'm hoping that we see just an absolute boost in numbers as well, so that Rick can get paid more, right? Is that what we're after?
Yeah. Oh, it's always about that.
Okay. Yes.
Well, Thor, I'm going to just interject one thing to kind of bring it full circle, and that is our good friend, the performer Sylvia McNair, who I've been lucky enough to work with for almost 20 years now, and Rick knows her well. She's been a guest with Saginaw Choral. We hope to bring her back. She once said to me, when we were out on the road doing a Gershwin evening with many symphonies, she was so happy, and she sung in the grandest concert halls and opera stages in the world, and has 2 Grammys. And she looked at me and she said, Kevin, what could be better than doing what you love with people you love in places you love? There's nothing better than that. What could be better than that? And I think we, Adam and Rick and myself, feel that way. What could be better than that? Yes, we have to make a living, So some people have day jobs as well as do the arts in between. But there really isn't anything better than that. That means a full life. That means you're in exactly the place you're supposed to be. Because if I've had this question once, I've had it 10 times. How can you have a big professional career living in Bay City? And I'm sure Ric's heard that about himself.
Oh, God,
I'm sure Adam's heard that about himself. What
That's
are
true.
you doing here? You should be in New York. You should be blah, blah, blah. And I have to take a step back and say, does it matter where you create art?
Nope.
Isn't the end goal to communicate and connect hearts to each other? And so many times you're doing it in places where you know absolutely no one. And here, to be able to work with friends and in your community, yeah, it doesn't get better than that. I'm not Pollyanna, because sure, we have our rehearsals where things are, is this going to happen? But there is that feeling of Mickey and Judy, there is a barn, there are costumes, let's go to work.
Yep.
And if I have to say it, Ric is the ringleader. He always has been. And he just, people are just magnetically drawn to this person. I think there's metal fibers in his blood. There's something going on there, okay? But no, but the thing is, he's honest, and they know they can trust him. And that's very important in our community, to find those key people that, yeah, should be in New York doing it on Broadway or on the concert stages of London. And maybe they have, but it doesn't matter. We're in our community and the talent is through the roof. So get your butt to Joseph. That's all I'm going to say.
Amen.
Well, thank you all for joining me today. And we do look forward to seeing the end result of all the hard work that you're putting in, and see all the music and lights and costumes and the whole 9 yards here at the Temple Theater. Thank you for listening to the Temple Arts Podcast. Please consider subscribing to the podcast and making a donation to the arts through SaginawArtMuseum.org or TempleTheater.com. This will allow us to continue to bring enriching program to Saginaw and beyond.